Hey, what's up guys? Book of Alice here with overly dramatic lighting, I guess. If you're part of Generation Z like me, you'll probably relate to this the most. Today we will be going over the 2000s iceberg, covering things from the early to late 2000s, and even covering topics from the early 2010s. Most of these entries are going to trigger nostalgia, and others are just meant to be creepy. If you end up enjoying this video, be sure to subscribe and leave a like, as it helps support my small channel tremendously. With that out the way, let's just get into the iceberg and see how far it goes. Numa Numa. If you don't know this classic, then I suggest that you watch it before it's too late. This was a classic YouTube viral video, initially being posted in 2006. It was one of the first videos to go viral on the site, which was barely turning 2 years old at the time. I remember watching this bad boy repeatedly when I was only 7 years old and finding it hilarious. Till this day, it's got a special place in my heart. Flash games. I remember spending hours playing flash games as a kid. I mean, it was like having a personal arcade at home. You could play multiple games completely free on your computer, and Newgrounds was that prominent force that fed my childhood addiction. No matter how fucked up the game was, 8-year-old me was ready to go play it, beating up Jose. One of my favorites was a game called Fancy Pants. It was basically a masterpiece. You would run around collecting whatever the hell this is and open doors. The artwork / animation of the character running and jumping was smooth, which gave a very chill vibe. Raft Wars was another one of my favorites, a game where you play as a toddler trying to kill pirates for diamonds. You keep a little strap on you and take turns shooting at each other. Explaining it doesn't seem all that fun, but hey, it's a certified classic, you can't knock it. 9/11. Of course, the events on 9/11 were life-altering, not only to its countless victims, but for people across the world, as the war that it ignited resulted in many more casualties on both sides. It changed the way we boarded commercial airplanes, built skyscrapers, and dealt with terrorist threats. It spawned numerous films, which recounted everything that occurred on that day, and even games, no matter how insensitive they were. All of this to remember that fateful day in American history. Pokemon cards. I know this is a bit more of a late 90s thing, but you have to admit it heavily crossed over into the early 2000s. I remember kids trading these shits in school and not being able to participate because my parents said that they were satanic. How? Anyways, at 18, when I could finally make my own decisions, I bought a pack to heal my childhood trauma, and I gotta say, it was totally worth it. I got this Venusaur in my first ever Pokemon pack, which looked pretty cool, so I framed it. Let me know in the comments if it's a keeper. Silly bands. I do not know if these were popular outside the United States, but silly bands were basically the fidget spinners of the late 2000s. You would collect and trade them amongst your friends. It was kind of like a form of currency in middle school. If you had a super good silly band, you could trade it up for a milk or tater tot. Sadly, these were sold out at our local stores, so I could only get my hands on them if I bought or traded them directly from a friend. I remember one time being so desperate that I bought a knockoff brand from Walmart. They weren't even shapes, they were numbers. This one's basically just a rubber band. I'm Blue. This was without a doubt a banger in the late 2000s. I would hear it everywhere, especially on YouTube. I guess everyone thought that it would go great with their video, and it did. Even Sonic.exe was bumping this shit, bro. PBS Kids. If you didn't have cable in the 2000s and you were a kid, you were most likely watching PBS Kids. They provided classics such as Arthur, Cyber Chase, My Enemy Miguel, Dragon Tales, and whatever this abomination was. It really was a hit or miss channel. Sometimes you got to watch something entertaining, and other times they shoved education down your throat. Wizard 101. They used to advertise the hell out of this online game on public television. The only problem was that kids like me, who lived in places that had horrible quality internet, couldn't really play complex games like these, as our internet was extremely slow. The advertisements were really intriguing though. Niga Higa. Now this is a golden channel. His videos legit inspired me to want to become a YouTuber. I grew up watching the classics like How to Be a Gangster, which taught me some very valuable life lessons, the iPod Human, which would be cancelled in today's society, and of course the masterpiece How to Be a Ninja, which reminded me of the simpler times on this website. No adpocalypse, no censoring, it was overall great. The golden era of YouTube. Black Eyed Peas. This is most likely an entry because of how many hits they had in the 2000s. They were constantly on the radio, and physical education teachers would always use the clean versions of their songs to get us pumped up for exercising. From I Got a Feeling to Boom Boom Pow, they wouldn't stop making hit singles until the mid-2010s. Early App Store games. I vividly remember getting my first Apple product. It was an iPod Touch 3rd generation, and downloading a shitload of the most popular games on the App Store, like Angry Birds, which I quickly got bored of, Cut the Rope, Fruit Ninja, Talking Tom, Doodle Jump, one of my favorites, Paper Toss, Jetpack Joyride, and my personal favorite, Temple Run, which had a sick-ass aesthetic, it had a good theme song, and the graphics were there. I just overall loved the gameplay as well. Let's move on to the shallow waters. Breath Machine. This was a popular song that was heavily used on the platform. It went something like this. The mid-2000s theme song would usually be accompanied by the blue classic Windows Movie Maker intro template, which now triggers a wave of nostalgia for early YouTube users. Windows XP. Unlike some of you Macintosh users, I grew up on Windows XP. Yup, I heard this heavenly sound every time I booted up the computer. I remember playing games like 3D Pinball, which was a fun time killer, as well as Minesweeper, a game where you try to click as many boxes as possible until you end up clicking a bomb. Now that I think about it, there was actually a strategy to the game, but I was 8 years old. I wasn't trying to do critical thinking on my free time. We also had MS Paint, which was pretty fun. I created some abominations when using it though. Original Wii console. So I guess this entry is simply referencing the console in general. It was released in 2006, and it pioneered further into the realm of motion control and gaming, allowing the player to use this infamous control to play games. I remember thinking this was the coolest thing ever, and I would constantly beg my parents for one, but I had to stick to playing on my friend's console, and Wii Sports was our game of choice. I remember playing this shit all night during sleepovers. Thinking back on it, you would think that one would get bored, but the internet was slow as hell back then, so it was either gaming or waiting 30 minutes for a pirated movie to load up on Mega Upload. Boxing was definitely my favorite game though. I would just go apeshit on it. The Duck Song. This one's a timeless classic and was on replay in classrooms across America. In the video, the guy at the lemonade stand can't catch a break from a psychotic duck that is constantly asking him if he sells grapes. By the 4th day, you would think a good business owner would meet consumer demands, but he's grapeless. The song went so hard that it had to be turned into a trilogy apparently. Creepypastas. Ah yes, creepypastas, the modern day campfire stories, times 1000. I remember listening to these while playing Minecraft Pocket Edition on my iPod Touch at the time. My favorite narrator of them all was Mr. Creepypasta, and my second favorite was Creep McPasta. Both of them are still posting to this day. Some of my favorite stories were Mr. Widemouth, Candle Cove, and Rap Rat. I actually made an Iceberg Explained video on creepypastas if you want to go check it out. It's a 3-part series. Creepy side of YouTube. I guess this is simply speaking about the creepy videos on YouTube, like I Feel Fantastic, which was posted in 2009, depicting mannequins singing, Yelling Creature, which is self-explanatory, that was posted in 2006, and so on. Oh, but don't forget Salad Fingers. This was the greatest online animated show for me. It combined the creepiness and existential crisis vibes all in one. Released in 2007, it really creeped me out as a kid, but I grew to love it. Check it out if you haven't. Monster House. So this is a film that a lot of people are now giving credit to, although it didn't receive much praise during its initial release in 2006. A lot of people found the animation style to be disturbing. It may be because the characters were being animated using live action motion capture, which was previously used in the Polar Express, which creeped out a lot of kids as well. Overall, the plot of the film was pretty dark, which made it captivating for older audiences. The wife dying and then controlling the old man's house, which was almost human-like, was a fascinating concept. Shrek. Damn, these movies had to be pretty impactful to be standalone entries on this list, and it was. I remember mostly everyone owning a copy of this film. It was pretty unique in that it poked fun at the average Disney Cinderella type animations. Donkey was a pretty memorable side character, and the sequels were pretty successful, spawning these cool kids meal toys that I vividly remember collecting. Overall, it was a historic 2000s movie that even made it into the Library of Congress. Disturbing PSA ads. I remember these pretty vividly. They would often play during Saturday mornings while cartoons were still on. Some of them weren't even creepy, they were just sad and kinda depressing. Of course, you had your creepy ones meant to scare kids straight, but the emotional ones were the ones that really got to me the most. Take a look. Super Size Me. This was a film shown in mostly every American school. If you haven't watched it, you're missing out on a great documentary. Spurlock's film follows a 30-day period from February 1st all the way to March 2nd, 2003, during which he only ate McDonald's foods. The film documents the lifestyle's drastic effect on Spurlock's physical and physiological well-being, and explores the fast food industry's corporate influence, including how it encourages poor nutrition for its own profit. He ate at McDonald's restaurants 3 times a day, eating every single item on the chain's menu at least once. I remember the puking scene making a few students walk out the classroom. Barney hate. For some reason in the mid to late 2000s, there was an awful lot of Barney hate, from songs like this.
I hate you, you hate me, let's get together and kill Barney with a big shotgun and shoot him in the head, then we'll check if he's dead.
To videos like this. Alright, now that I'm thinking back on it, I remember kids singing this shit on the playground, thinking that they were the funniest thing alive. Now I'm just laughing at the cringe. Like, what did he do to deserve this? Let's move on to the depth. Live action teen shows. iCarly, Zack and Cody, That's So Raven, one of my favorites by the way, Hannah Montana, Wizards of Waverly Place, the Reese's Puffs commercial with the kid in it. I can go on forever naming classics from the 2000s. I'm gonna be biased and say that it was one of the best time periods for tweens/teens live action shows. Mexican Doll. This entry could be in reference to this viral video depicting a girl holding her quinceañera doll, when all of a sudden it turns its head, posted in 2010. Flapjack unsettling scenes. Out of every single Cartoon Network show, I gotta say, Flapjack is the only series that competes with Courage the Cowardly Dog's creepiness factor. From the evil cat scene that works kinda like a jump scare to scenes like this. Creepy stop motion. I don't know what occurred in the early 2010s, but it basically sparked a renaissance of creepy stop motion animation films that were extremely gory, and Lee Hardcastle was a prominent figure in the scene, producing classic shorts like The Simpsons Couch Gag, which left many kids traumatized, depicting each of the Simpsons family members being brutally murdered. Though this wasn't the scariest stop motion animation I've ever seen, that award goes to the film Bobby Yeah, released in 2011. It's best described as disturbing, to say the least. You have to go watch it yourself to understand, but this definitely fucked me up. School book fairs. I guess this entry is referencing the scholastic book fairs that would happen every so often at school. These little pop-up shops were pretty fun to go to, especially if your parents remembered to give you money that day. You could go home with some great pieces of literature, like spy books and Guinness Book of World Records Bibles, and other random shit that you would show off to your friends. This was peak capitalism in school. Fushigi, these little balls of magic. I've always wanted one, but deep down in my 11-year-old heart, I knew that it was too good to be true. It sadly won't defy the laws of gravity for only 20 bucks. Y2K. The Y2K scare, putting it simply, resulted from dates being stored in computers as 2 digits instead of 4, like how we manually write it out. This was done for simplicity's sake, because 19 was just implied to go first. That is until we were nearing the new millennium, and 2000 was going to be the new year, meaning that computers would go crazy and cause havoc on Earth because it wouldn't interpret the date correctly. Or at least that's what people thought. It obviously ended up causing no major harm, although it did make some false alarms go off in Japan and other small fixable errors in certain operating systems, but that's about it. Online multiplayers. From Club Penguin to Pop Tropica, these games impacted tons of 2000s kids. I personally loved Club Penguin when I was a kid. It took up a lot of my pastime in the summers. As for Pop Tropica, I think I played it once or twice, but it was definitely going to be on this list as it was extremely popular for most people. Pillow pits. It's a pillow, it's a pit, it's a stuffed animal / pillow that's filled with children's bacteria. If you were a kid in the late 2000s, you probably owned one of these. I'm not gonna lie, they were pretty comfortable and the theme song was super catchy, but they kind of fell off after the early 2010s. Did any of you guys own one of these? Satanic Panic Aftermath. So in the late 80s and 90s, there was a scare in the Christian public that Satanism was becoming a norm in American society, and children were being indoctrinated / harmed through Halloween candy, animated media, and even books. This caused a large group of people in the Christian faith to completely stop celebrating certain holidays, like Halloween, and ban their children from consuming certain media. This continued into the early to mid 2000s. Crazy Frog. I'm sure you've heard most of the Crazy Frog renditions of popular songs, and you definitely know who Crazy Frog is. He's got close to 3 billion views alone on a single video. The character went viral in the late 2000s for making electronic or synthesized versions of singles like Queen's We Are the Champions and Axel F. Let's move on to the abyss. Popular toys. This is a quick one. Beyblades. We've all heard of these. I think they became popular in the mid 2000s. You would spin them and battle against your friends. Tic-Tics as well. These are a childhood favorite of mine. Even though I only remember owning one, I would constantly trade them with my friends. I even remember trading up to a BMX bike Tic-Tic. Bakugan ball thingies. I don't know if these derived from an animated series or manga or something, cause I never owned one as a kid, but I vividly remember these being popular at school. Dead stores. This is simply in reference to the once alive inactive stores in the 2000s, like Toys R Us, Kmart, Radio Shack, and Payless. Now most of them are struggling and others went out of business completely. This video pretty much sums it up. Kool-Aid Killer. This was a viral video on YouTube at the time, depicting the Kool-Aid Man as a killer in a horror movie trailer parody. It's overall pretty funny now, but it was pretty scary watching it as a kid. Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina was a large Category 5 Atlantic hurricane that caused over 1,800 deaths and 125 billion in damages in late August 2005, particularly in the city of New Orleans and the surrounding areas. The hurricane crushed entire towns, forcing people to migrate to other regions of the country, as the place that they once called home was most likely destroyed. GTA San Andreas myths / legends. Of course, everyone knows GTA San Andreas. It's by far my favorite game in the GTA series. I loved just roaming around the landscape and creating chaos. Apart from playing the game, watching videos about hidden creatures and legends was a fun pastime. I remember the real footage of Bigfoot type videos and trying to find him in the game to no avail, as well as trying to find UFOs in the sky. This overall added more mystery to the game, which made it fun. Vine. Vine is TikTok's father / mother. It only allowed 7 seconds of content to be posted at a time, which really pushed people to be creative, spawning some of the most iconic short videos ever, and creating legendary sound bites. No matter if you hated or loved the application, you gotta admit it had a cultural impact, positive or negative. Sadly, it was shut down on October 2016, though its spirit lives on forever. Classic intros. Okay, so for this one, I'll just compile all the ones that I remember.
Coming soon to own on video and DVD.
So yeah, that was a nostalgia roller coaster. 2000s Illuminati scare. In the early and mid 2000s, there was a great amount of videos that were made, quote unquote, exposing the Illuminati, calling out celebrities like Jay-Z and Beyonce for being members. This was mostly prominent because YouTube and other social medias weren't as censored back then, allowing for people to go down rabbit holes of unfiltered content, which I gotta admit was pretty fun. Back when Alex Jones was still allowed on YouTube, anywhere a triangle was shown, it was considered to be secret messaging. From children's cartoons to Disney content, it was quote-unquote Illuminati confirmed. That's how we got these type of memes. OG Motorola flip phones. You knew you grew up in the 2000s if you remember these things. They were like iPhones before iPhones existed. You could call, text, take pictures, and even play games. And that was my personal favorite feature. I remember playing some pretty fun side scrollers that I still can't find to this day. Imagine how much lost media content there is to be made on pre-App Store mobile games. The truth about liminal spaces. Couldn't find much about this one until I came across Cavar963's theory on Reddit, reading, "Think about liminal spaces. Why do you think people find them unsettling? Is it because they solely have no focus point and people are nowhere in the picture? Or is there something more profound about these images? As we have become more technologically advanced, our communities seem to have gotten colder. Less people want to go out because Amazon and Uber Eats can have it delivered right to your door. But it wasn't always like this. Foot traffic for malls, churches, and other stores/recreation centers were pretty steady in the early 2000s, but began to go downhill ever since. Could these images be creepy because we subconsciously know that we are transitioning from an old way of life to a new one? One where we will have little to no human interaction apart from close family and spouses? There is something more to these liminal space images. What are your theories? Waking up in the middle of the night to George Lopez. Entries like these are pretty self-explanatory. It's kinda creepy to think that a large group of us have gone through this. You go to sleep watching some random show on Nickelodeon and wake up in the dead of night, sweaty, listening to George Lopez's show theme song. There's gotta be some deeper meaning to this, right? How can so many people have the same specific memory? Crazy. And that's it. That was the 2000s Iceberg. I know I may have missed some things, but this is a one-man show. I edit, write the script, mix and master my vocals, record, and upload. But maybe a part 2 is appealing to you. Let me know in the comments. Other than that, if you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe and leave a like as it helps support my small channel. I'll catch you on the next video.